On the RICOH Theta, the list files command will give you both the listing of the files as well as the thumbnails. By changing the max thumb size from 0 to 640, you can see the thumbnails. So the default is max thumbnail size of 0, and the thumbnails won't appear. However, if you change it to 640, you can get the thumbnails. The thumbnails are going to be in bytecode. To either display the thumbnails or save it to disk, you're going to need to convert it into a binary format. Unfortunately, there's a bug in the SC2 firmware which prevents the thumbnail portion from working properly. However, there's a workaround. So if you try to list all the thumbnails, you will only get the results for a single thumbnail. So it is documented, it does work, this max thumb size. However, you won't be able to get all the thumbnails. Using a RICOH Theta SC2 with firmware 1.61, when I set the max thumb size to 0, we would expect that there would be no thumbnails, which is what occurs. So you have 4 entries here. If I set it to 640, the thumbnails theoretically should appear for all 4 files here on the camera. If I run it again, it says the total entries is 1, and I just have 1 file. So what you need to do is to put this into a loop and store all the files into an array, loop through the array, and then grab the individual thumbnails one by one. Let's compare it to the RICOH Theta Z1 running firmware 2.0.1. So let's first set the thumbnail size to 0. So I've got there's 9 entries, but it's only listing 5 of them here. And it's what you would expect, right? It's just the text listing, and it has the name of the files. If I set it to 640, it'll list 5 of the thumbnails. The thumbnails are slightly bigger, I think, on the Z1 here. But the API is working as expected with the Z1. So for the SC2, we do need a workaround. This is connected to the SC2. You can list the files. You'll get all the files here. You could set the max thumbnail size to 640, and the thumbnails will appear. If you increase it to, say, 15 thumbnails, you can get all 15 thumbnails fairly quickly here. Just try to get the maximum. It does come over very quickly, right? Because the thumbnails are much smaller. This is a single image here. You can see how long it takes to transfer from the SC2 camera to this computer. This will work exactly the same on a mobile phone. The solution to work with the SC2 is quite simple. You first just do the list files with the number of files that you want to list. So in this case, I'm using a slider here that changes the number of files I can get. The ceiling is just because what's returning here from the slider is a floating point. So the entry count is an integer, and then you set the max sum size to 0, right? So when you first do it, it returns a string where you have all the information that you want. That's the first step. So in this example, the function is called listFiles command, and it's returning a string. The string is the entire listing of files. So once I have this string, I can use it. So in step 2, I'm taking the list of all the data that's right here, which includes the entries, and there's, for every file there's going to be an entry, but what I'm looking for is actually the file URL. So I just want this part here, which is the HTTP file, and with that I can pull down the data. So first I grab the entire list, and then I run it through a loop, so a simple for loop, and then for each entry I'm grabbing the file URL and I'm adding that into a list. So now I have a list that's only the file URLs here that I can iterate through and then grab the bytecode. So we're at step 2 right here, right? So you now have a list of all the file URLs stored into an array or a list. And then from here, you can get each of the URLs directly with an HTTP GET. I'll show you how to do it. And then you have to pass this question mark type equals thumb. So that the type equals thumb is actually on the web documentation in the overview. It's a bit buried. It would be better if it was in that thumbnail section, but right here, acquiring file and thumbnail. So this is the official RICOH Theta API documentation, and it does have the query type equals thumb, and this is how you can get the thumb. The code for this example is in this GitHub repository. I'll have the description. I'll have the link in the description so you can get it. I have it working right now with Windows, although it does work with Android and iOS. So if you want to get it working on Android, you first need to clone the repository. You might need to use Flutter clean even on Windows, but it's Flutter create platforms equals Android, and then it will generate the files that's needed. So if you do it on Android, you're going to need to do a quick fix here. I have another video on how to fix this error for insecure HTTP. Because the RICOH Theta camera only does HTTP and not HTTPS, you're going to need to use a modification to your Android manifest.xml. So with the modification, the demo does work with the Android Pixel 3 emulator. Thanks for joining us. If you like this type of video, give this one a like, and we'll use the feedback to produce more videos like this. And subscribe to the channel, and we'll get more tutorials like this going out. This will also work exactly the same with the Z1 or the Theta V. Have a great day.